Um, we're here for a Index on Censorship debate on the right to be forgotten, specifically for young people, specifically to do with social media. My name is Milena Knežević. I'm the editorial assistant at Index on Censorship, and I'm joined by Patrick Greenfield, who is the editor of one of the editors of York Vision, a student newspaper at the University of York, Amy Ashenden, who is the editor of the student journals, and Alice Kirkland, who is an intern at Index on Censorship. So everybody say hi.
Hi. Hi.
Right. So I'm just gonna start off nice and general. Patrick, do you think that young people do have a right to be forgotten?
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's obviously a big challenge for our generation at the moment. We can't really get away with saying things, or offensive things, or maybe comments we don't really hold or haven't really thought through anymore. Everything we say has to be, or is now recorded, and you can refer back to it. And we've really got to be careful. And I think that's unfair on. Well, we're all developing. I certainly don't agree with what I thought 2 years ago. And I don't like the idea that, well, I don't like the fact that that's recorded somewhere and someone can, I don't know, in the future maybe access that and use that against me.
Amy, what do you think?
I don't think we can really hold young people accountable for what they post online until we actually have education in schools about what the consequences might be of what they're putting out on Twitter and Facebook. And also until we work to reduce the generation gap that technology has brought between young people and their parents that don't really understand technology they're using.
So you think there is a role to play for schools in this area?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's something that would be really useful to put into citizenship lessons, something that schools could inform parents about, because you kind of go through school, you don't learn anything about social media, and then all of a sudden you can put absolutely anything online. You can create a blog, you can create a Twitter account, you can post anything on Facebook, and a lot of the time it's accessible by absolutely anyone. You don't necessarily think about the consequences of that.
I agree with Amy in that it should be taught at schools, but in my opinion, I mean, this might just be from my childhood, I have been taught in school and in uni how to use social media, especially in uni, the consequences of posting defamatory stuff on your Facebook or your Twitter, you know, slagging off your tutors on your Twitter account and what trouble that can get you into. We've had it drilled into us. I mean, I'm 23, I've had social media for the past 10 years, and I've grown up with it. I know what I am meant to say and what I'm not, and so I think maybe the education needs to start younger, so maybe in primary school when kids start to get taught about sexual education, they should get taught about social media as well then, because kids these days, they get onto Facebook when they are in primary school. But I think there already is that education, people know what they're doing, so why should they have a right to be forgotten when they know what the consequences are if they do put stuff out there. I mean, I think personally the media over sensationalises social media and the risk that there can be with it, when in reality it only happens to a few, like a handful of people now and again, and the majority of us get on day to day using social media without any problems at all.
You have a response to that, Amy or Patrick?
I think what's interesting about Twitter especially is that I don't know, you can go from discussing Gareth Bale one moment to something completely extreme and voice opinions on both, but they're still there to look at, and you don't really have any privacy in that, and you kind of get a mixture of every single view you hold on a stream. I think there needs to be some kind of protection against that, because if not, I mean, it means that people aren't going to use Twitter or Facebook as a platform to discuss really important things. I mean, that is, when it's a good platform for the world to have a discussion about things that affect everybody. And if people feel like they're going to be prosecuted or have to be overly careful and not voice an opinion, then I think that's a bad thing.
Amy?
I know Alice was saying the media perhaps over-sensitizes socialises the cases, like Paris Brown, the lost her job. But actually, maybe we don't hear about things so much because, I mean, we don't. How do we even know that employers aren't checking out our social media profiles and then ignoring applications without even? I mean, just because we aren't, you're not a celebrity or it's not a high-profile case doesn't mean it doesn't go on. I'm sure there's plenty of employers that want to look at your social media profile and check if you would be in line with the company who aren't posting racist or homophobic stuff on Twitter. How much can we even know really goes on? How can we even know what strangers are looking at, what judgments they're making about us by things we're posting?
Do you think there is a sense, because you mentioned earlier a generational gap between young people and their parents, do you also think that there is a sort of generational gap to make up for employers, whereas employers today who didn't have social media when they grew up might find a picture of you being drunk on a holiday on Facebook very offensive and shocking and a reason not to employ you, whereas employers down the line who themselves will be used to using social media might not find that shocking.
Perhaps they'll be a bit more accustomed to seeing things like that, but I think from my point of view, certainly, it'd still be shocking to see something that negative. I think companies what the difference between companies in the future and businesses before will be looking for, employers even, is that they'll be looking to see positive ways you use social media. I don't think that they would or should necessarily become more lenient on the kind of content that you post. I think they just perhaps raise their expectations about the things you're posting.
Alice?
I think alongside that, you've got to look at it in the opposite way as well. I mean, when the people who are employing us now, when they first went for their first job, they didn't have to, take down all their pictures off their walls of them on holiday having fun, or remove pages from their diary, their personal diary that they've written, in case the person who was potentially going to employ them saw it. And so therefore, I think for our generation, it's unfair that we should be judged on those types of things. It's not our fault that the media and technology evolved when it did, and that we're the generation that have had to grow up with it. So surely, they didn't get judged on their childhood when they were getting employed. Why should we? So I think they should take that stance, and when they look at us, they shouldn't judge us on. I think people need to be aware of what they post on Facebook. You don't want to obviously put something out there that you wouldn't want your employer to see, but stuff that I wouldn't want an employer to see, I wouldn't want my parents to see either. So I think they just need to look at it from a slightly different perspective and think, we didn't have to go through this when we were getting jobs. Why should we then judge people these days on it?
I think as much as young people shouldn't be judged quite as harshly as adults and what they're posting, partly because of the lack of education guaranteed on social media use, and partly because young people's attitudes are changing, they're still learning all the time about different things they might have opinions on. Might not be the opinions they have tomorrow. But I think you almost sort of have to look at social media, what you post on social media, as a first impression that you'd give to someone if you met them. Would you really say those things to someone you just met? Would you say them to a stranger? And if you wouldn't, why are you posting them online?
Patrick?
I think it's very important to differentiate between platforms and not just talk about social media as this uniform concept. I mean, Facebook, you're only a couple of clicks away from a privacy setting that stops you ever getting targeted by employers. I mean, obviously you have to have appropriate profile photos and that kind of stuff. But it's with appropriate profile settings, it's very hard to actually get any information about you. I think the biggest problem is Twitter, because obviously it's designed around debate. The success of Twitter is designed around free expression, and if you restrict that in any way, or there's a kind of unspoken censorship, then that's a problem for me. Maybe it's because I spend too much time on Twitter. I don't know, but I don't like. I mean, I've got thousands of tweets out there now. And I don't know what I said 2 years ago, and I imagine I've said some pretty terrible things at moments, and I'm worrying about it now actually. I think maybe LinkedIn, for example, having worked with LinkedIn as well, that is an appropriate. Well, that's a very formal, money-based, job-based social media platform that people do use to advertise themselves on. Whereas Facebook finds itself differently. I don't know. And then you kind of get into they're kind of different parts of your personalities that you invest into different social media applications. And I think it's important in this debate to differentiate between them. I think that's what I was trying to say.
Mm-mm-mm. You mentioned earlier in your point that the point about censorship, censoring yourself. Do you feel that there is or any of you, that there is a sense that if you're asking these big corporations to go back and delete things that people have put online, is that a form of censorship?
I'm not sure. I think
Anyone?
people should take responsibility for what they say. I think that I imagine it's very easy to design an application or an algorithm that you can use to delete these kind of things. I think Facebook certainly has some kind of thing already that you can opt into. But I'm not. I think it's up to the firms to give the option. But I don't think it's. I think people should kind of take responsibility for what they've said in the past as well.
Amy?
Yeah, I agree with having to take responsibility for what you've posted. But I think also we should have a right to delete a tweet. Even for something sort of menial, like you've spelled something wrong, you've got a reference wrong. I think, but at the same time, if you'd have said that in real life to a person in a conversation, you wouldn't be able to just sort of take back what you've just said. But I think if you realise something's wrong, then perhaps you should be able to delete it. It's quite it's a fine line, because if you get a politician saying something and it's deleted, and then it's you know, you see this all the time with newspapers taking screenshots of a tweet that's very offensive. It's then later been deleted, and it starts a big discussion, and it sort of blows up. Why should that person have been able to get away with what they've said? I think it's really a matter of being educated and really thinking about what you're tweeting before you're tweeting it, and trying to think about why you want to put it out there.
Alice?
I think my main concern is, there's this, I think it's a bill that's gone through in California, and in 2015, California kids are going to be able to ask Twitter or Facebook or any social media to take down their content. And my worry is, if you're given this option to take down all of your past history, surely kids are going to be more prone to put up insensitive stuff, explicit stuff, stuff that they wouldn't normally say, because they know that when that point in time comes when they need to look clean or professional online, when they're applying for jobs or for uni, they can just wipe their history. And surely the whole point of history is to learn from it. And when you get rid of that back history, and going back to my worry is that these kids are going to say something hurtful to someone else that might cause someone else to go and harm themselves, or someone else might put up an explicit photo thinking that it will get taken down whenever they want, and someone else will get hold of this photo and use it against them in years to come. And I do not agree with the fact that there should just be this unlimited right that anyone can have their content taken down just because they're a kid, just for this fear that it will then make people act more inappropriately online.
I agree with that, actually. I don't think young people should be told, don't worry, anything you post can be taken down before you need to take responsibility for it. I think young people need to be taught from a young age, you have to take responsibility for what you've put out there. And then, people will reconsider what they're putting out. Do they want the image that it's going to reflect of them by posting it?
I don't think we should underestimate the power of debate, though, or maybe the invisible hand of debate. Maybe it's a stupid example, but I remember when footballers first joined Twitter, their grammar and some of the things they said was just awful, and they got criticised for it. And apparently Jack Wilshere and Rio Ferdinand have suddenly learned how to spell because of Twitter. And I think that's an interesting kind of example of the way debate and comment can shape people and make them better. And I think if you post something, I don't know, outrageous on Facebook, people should comment, people should challenge that. And I think that's, well, I'm not sure your worry is completely founded there, because I think if people talk more and use these platforms in the way they're intended, then you can, I don't know, you can solve a lot of issues that way too.
No, I definitely agree with the power of social media to bring about debate. Recently, actually, I had a friend that's on the student journals team with me, and she challenged a bar and nightclub near where she goes to university, and posted on their wall asking why they'd used an explicit image of a woman on their flyers for a nightclub evening, for an event flyer, and she got quite a sarcastic reply. It wasn't very maturely done, it wasn't very professional, back from the company. And lots of people commented, loads and loads of people shared it, got involved, commented. And that sort of thing really kind of started up a big feminism debate. And I don't think that should have been able to be deleted. I definitely don't think the company should have the right to delete what they've replied to her on it. And because they're having to take responsibility for what they commented, some of the comments are actually, you know, I sort of felt a bit embarrassed that even when people have commented it. You know, people should have their right to opinion. And some people really against her sort of feminist argument. But again, that's a whole debate, and that's led to some people saying on there that they're not going to use this nightclub anymore, you know, change their mind about the company. It sort of, while it does make people take responsibility, I think it does open up the opportunity for some really interesting debates to happen. I do agree with
that. So we're going to be wrapping up in a second, but Alice did mention the law in California that's recently been passed about giving minors the right to scrub clean their history. Just as a final question, would you ever put into place such a law if you could?
Yes, no, I certainly would. I think it's always good to have the option to do that. But I do think kind of everybody has to take responsibility for the problem, and the firm shouldn't be the only people that have to take responsibility.
Amy?
I don't think I would make it law, actually. I think it's more important to bring about education on social media. I don't think I would give people the legal right to delete things they've said online, just as people couldn't take things back from what they've said in real life. I think that sounds sort of quite harsh for young people, but I think there's other ways we can improve social media use, and we need to look at it as more of a positive thing rather than a negative.
And Alice, I think you've made your thoughts on this pretty clear, but just to clarify.
Yeah, pretty much. No, I wouldn't bring something like that into law. I mean, at the end of the day, as far as I'm aware of all social media, there's always a delete button. So if you put something out there that you don't want out there, just delete it. And yeah, it's in cyberspace or whatever, but you know, you've got to be responsible in the first place. And as Amy was saying, if people are educated properly, they know how to use social media, which I feel the majority of people do. I mean, you're always going to get people out there who do make mistakes and do something wrong, but that's with all aspects of life. So no, I don't think that should be made law.
Okay, thank you so much for taking part, guys. You had some really, really interesting things to say, and hopefully other people will also take part in the debate. So that's Patrick Greenfield from York Vision, Amy Ashenden from the Student Journals, and Alice Kirkland, the Internet Index on Censorship.